waiting. There was 12 people right. They're all kind of waiting at the last second. Okay. Hello, tubers. You're in for a special treat tonight. I'm your host, Scott Richardson, and I have a special guest that's going to be on tonight, Cody Snodgres. I probably butchered that name still. And let me just preface this by saying know nothing. I cannot confirm or deny anything this man says. It's strictly his story. I am just giving him a platform to be able to tell his story. Other than that, I can't tell you anything because I have no firsthand knowledge of anything except what I recall watching on the news, just like everybody else. So, let me go ahead and bring in our special guest, Cody. So, Cody, how are you doing tonight?
We're doing good, Scott. How's everything going?
It's going real good here in Texas. It was actually pretty warm today. It,
Right on.
yeah, it was like almost 75 degrees. You could run around in shorts and a tank top. I love it. So, last night I had a real interesting conversation with you, and we talked about several things, and I was asking you several questions, but tonight I want to kind of get into a little bit more about you, and I had wrote some questions down. So if you don't mind, maybe we could go into a few of these questions and kind of get everybody up to speed on stuff, because I know you have basically 20 years to try to compress into a story in 1 hour, and there's just no way that can possibly happen.
Yeah,
But
we'll just have to cover the high points, and everything else is covered in the book. It's about 360 pages. So, yeah, just fire away and we'll get started.
okay, well, let's start out. Where were you born?
Santa Monica, California.
You're a true Californian, and
Yeah.
so where were you? Were you primarily raised there, or where were you raised?
No, when I was young, we moved to Farmers Branch, Texas, and I went to high school there and at R.L. Turner High School in Farmers Branch, Texas, and then went to undergrad school at North Texas State University. I went to East Texas State University, and I got a double BS in mathematics and physics. And then I went to Stephen F. Austin State University down in Nacogdoches, Texas, to work on my Master of Science degree in physics.
We got people from all over there listening, from Georgia to Mississippi, somebody from France. I'm glad everybody's listening. So y'all just hang in there. We're going to go through all this as much as we possibly can. Oh, and hello to Muscle Shores, Alabama. Y'all are welcome too. So, so you basically went to Farmers Branch, which is a suburb outside of Dallas, and that's where I was born and raised, was Dallas.
Yeah.
Now, when first contacted by the CIA?
Well, what happened in 1974, I was a senior in high school, and we took the standard SAT test, and I took the physics section of it. And I scored in the top 1% of the United States, across the whole United States. And then I was also number one on the tennis team there, and I had several scholarship offers and stuff. But I went to East Texas State University in 1975. In the fall of 1975, I was in the physics department, and one of the professors came and whispered in my ear and said, "There's somebody who wants to see you." And I said, "Who is it?" He said, "It's a recruiter." I said, "Well, the job fairs don't usually happen until May, when the semesters are out. What is this?" And he said, "He's all alone down there, and he wants to talk to you alone, and he works for the CIA." That's when they first came to recruit me.
Wow. So they actually told the professor he worked for the CIA, huh?
Yeah, yeah. That's how they got in the physics department. And so anyway, I told him that I did not want to work for the government, and I still had my draft card, from Vietnam and all that stuff. I did not go to Vietnam, but I had the draft card anyway. And I told him I didn't want to work for the government. I wanted to work for myself. And he said, "Well, we can work something out." That's the last time I saw him.
Oh, that was the last time you saw that particular agent.
Yeah.
Okay. At what age did you get into these black op type situations or contracting?
Yeah, okay, yeah, Scott, but before we go any further, I just want to say one thing. I don't intend to violate any kind of laws. They have the 1982 Intelligence Identities Protection Act. That's the IIPA, and that was U.S. Code Title 50, Sections 421 to 426, I think. And it says, like the disclosure of a U.S. government operative's identity is illegal only if it is done intentionally and with knowledge, actively maintaining cover for such operative. So the things I'm going to talk about, most of the guys are dead, and anybody that's still working or anything, I'm not going to say anything because some of your listeners may remember the CIA officer John, pronouncing his name right. He was sentenced in January 2013 in federal prison for violating this act. The CIA officer involved in one of the CIA's rendition, detention, and interrogation programs. They call that the RDI for short. But he, said some guy's name, and that's what they hammered him with. So the names and stuff that I'll say are just the ones basically that are gone now.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I want you to do. I don't want you to say anything that's going to compromise you or could compromise me or anything like that. So, and I remember that John Kirk, even say his last name, but
Very strange name.
yeah, he's actually been on several news stations like Fox News, several. I don't even watch Fox News, but I've seen some clips that have been posted on the internet. He's also been, I think he might have been on Alex Jones or anything or something like that. But I have seen him before, and yeah, he did go to prison, and it was not a pretty deal. So anything that you feel is sensitive, by all means, just say, I am not talking about that. Next question. I have no problems with that.
He was just a whistleblower, and they were doing the torture with Gitmo and different things, and he was one of the first guys that stepped forward, and they hammered him. So the stuff I'm going to talk about is about the Oklahoma City bombing and its cover-up in the 10th Circuit Department of Justice. So we'll get to that whenever you're ready. Just fire away, buddy. Let's go.
Yeah. So can you talk about what your base pay was or anything like that?
Well, it varied from times, average about 20,000 a month. And that was usually in cash and things. But we had high overhead, and as an independent, you can't use a lot of government assets. You have to have your own assets because when you're doing black ops, nothing can be traced, and so.
Right. So there were no checks to be signed by any company or anything. It was basically a cash type deal.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No record.
No records. Well, hence the name Black Ops. Did you ever get any type of fake passports at any time?
Yeah.
Okay. And so with that, you would probably also have had a fake name to go with that.
Sure.
Okay. Did you ever get married or have any kids?
In the U.S., yeah, let's just skip all that.
Okay, that's not a problem. What was the lowest point in your life?
When I died in the hospital, I died twice during the course of operations, and we were involved in Project Slammer, which it was a covert mind control program. They were targeting. It was assassination at a distance, the type of thing where they don't use any trace. They don't send a physical assassin. That was in September of 1991 at the Soldier of Fortune show out in Las Vegas, and we took about $50,000 worth of machine guns out there, legal machine guns. I had a Class 3 license, and we went out there to do a shoot at the Soldier of Fortune show, and I was targeted due to some operations we were in hospital. And we can talk about all that later. That's that could be a 2-hour show on.
Okay. No, I just want to kind of give people a little bit of an idea, because I know we're not going to talk about what we spoke about last night, but some of the things I felt like people would like to know, to kind of get to know who you are as a person, because this is a pretty deep question. Is people would say that you're part of the problem selling out. What would you tell them now?
Well, I spent over 20 years doing black ops. I also did bodyguard work, high level stuff, and that in September of '91, when I actually died in the hospital, I was targeted for termination in a covert, black operation CIA. And I survived that, barely. They had to shot me back twice. But I just kind of had a spiritual awakening. I floated over my body in the hospital and watched them work on me. And I had what you call an out-of-body experience, or a near-death experience. And that changed me. It altered me. And I started to, I decided to do something good with my life, doing good things. And this led me eventually to refusing the job, Murrah Federal Building.
Okay. So is that when you decided to turn into a whistleblower?
Yeah, a little bit after that. The main thing that happened, they had Waco in February 28th of '93. That's when 4 ATF agents were killed and the 6 Branch Davidians were dead down there. And I got a lot of stories in the book about that. I know I knew some Branch Davidian guys that were personal. They told me the stories about Timothy McVeigh being there and what really happened. This story's never been told, and it's in the book. But in October of 1994, I was contacted by Harold Leonard. He was one of the CIA assets. And we did a lot of black ops jobs together, but he called me and we went out. We usually walk out in the woods and away from any type of surveillance or anything. And we talked about that job. And I was fixing to retire. And I was really tired of all this. I had died in the hospital earlier in 1991. And it really diminished me. I've been in a wheelchair for a long time. But he called me and he said, "We've got a job for you." And I said, "What kind of job is it?" And he said, "It's EOD op, explosives demolitions." And I said, "Well, which country are we going to?" And I thought we were going to Saudi Arabia or something. And he said, "No, it's here in the States." And I said, "You got an EOD job in the States?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, where is it?" And he said, "Oklahoma." I said, "Well, what kind of job is it?" He said, "It's a federal building." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, it's the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building." And he had a backpack with a purple black backpack that had $500,000 in cash in it, and it was laying there. He said, "We'll give you half up front, and then the other half when it's done, and you can get your standard EOD team, whatever you need. Just tell us." And I looked at him and I said, "Are you fucking crazy? These are our own people. I thought we were going overseas or something." I said, "I'm not going to do this. You guys went too far this time." And I kind of went off on him. Severe PTSD from all the stuff we've been through, and I just had it. I said, I can't do this stuff anymore. I'm having bad dreams at night. I almost died in the hospital. I'm waking up with sweats. I'm sleeping with silenced machine guns, one in each hand, every night when I go to bed, and I'm a nervous wreck. And I said, this is wrong for our own people. And he told me to calm down, other op that was going on. And I just told him, "Look," I said, "you don't understand." I said, "I've got to quit. I can't do this anymore. I can't take it anymore." And so that right there was basically the time where I decided, this is evil. And the CIA is just, they're out of control. Okay. People, they're doing false flags, and I just made my break right there. I turned from an asset to a liability. And so two days later, one of my handlers called me. He had got wind of it. He was ex-Special Forces in Vietnam. I'll say his name now. His name is Duke Flaglier because he's dead. He died of Agent Orange. But he was Special Forces over there, and when he got out of the Army, he accepted civilian recruitment for the agency. And he was one of my handlers. And so he called me, and he told me, dude, you need to leave the country. And I said, I'm not going to say, I'm getting out, I'm quitting. And he said, no, you don't understand. He said, you turned from an asset to a liability, you know way too much. And he offered me, he said, he had a place in Belize, and he said, you can go down there and cool off for a while, and then we'll decide where to put you and how to get you gone, but don't stay in the U.S. And I said, no, I'm going to stay here, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to quit. And so I was kind of foolish and thought I could walk away, But it's not like a job at Walmart. You can't just walk away from this stuff.
Well, and to be honest, I talked to one of my mentors who was ex-military over in Nam, and I brought the conversation up about you, and he was a little bit reserved and he was very cautious because he's seen how the CIA operated over in Nam, and they were sociopaths. That was his very words. He said these guys would cut people's throats, these villagers' throats, even kids, and then leave everything for the guys in the field to kind of clean up the mess. And so it was totally what he classified as demoralizing to the troops because of what rogue people within the government were doing. And a lot of people are asking, why was the Oklahoma building? Hey, we're going to get into that, so y'all just hang on. We're just leading up to everything. So
yeah, I'd like to say that I was an independent contractor. I turned down recruitment for the CIA. I did not work for them. I never got a paycheck from them. All our stuff was through. We worked for assets and/or agents, and we took on jobs that the regular officers, case officers, whoever didn't want to take. I mean, they had their political careers, and if there was any blowback from our operations, then we would be the fall guys. In Nicaragua or something, they would say, "Who are you?" and I would just be a person, any ties, and that's the exact reason why they offered me that job is that it wasn't done straight out of Langley. It was done through the Black Ops community, and that way, if there's any blowback, they could fight it real easy.
Plausible.
We worked for over here, actually in the Phoenix Project in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, what they were setting you up was with ability, so you were the perfect scapegoat. That way, if you got caught with blood on your hands, they could all stand back and say, "We don't know you. Too bad. You're toast." So back to we're just got a couple more questions, and this is to kind of bring everybody to: would you testify before Congress with all the information and knowledge that you have now?
Yes, I would. I told the ATF agents on this case here that I had that I would do that in exchange for a full presidential pardon, and they wouldn't even comment on that.
Okay. Well, and this is why getting this stuff out here brings it out to light that they are not even acknowledging you. Now, what would you tell the president if you were allowed back on the reservation? What would you first tell Trump what is there any intel that would be just totally top secret that you would want to make known? I mean, you could just say yes or no. I mean, hey, I don't want you to go into any specifics, but if Trump were to bring you back on the reservation, I'm sure you would have a lot stuff to tell him, and it would probably be secured, I'm sure, right?
Well, yeah, if I did any kind of testimony, I'm sure they would seal it. I got to explain what happened here. After I turned that job down, that was in October of '94, and of course the Murrah Building went up on April 19th, 1995, and boy, there's so much that I could talk about with all this. But after all that happened, when that happened, I went black for a while. I got my false identities and my disguise kits and all the crap you use, and I just went black. I just disappeared for a while. I was still here in the States. But when that building actually went up, where I just knew that I turned the job down to do it. And I didn't really know the reasons why they wanted it done until later, which we're going to get into, these are amazing. It's amazing. Went back for a while, and in 1997, I was back up here in Colorado Springs. There's a lot of military bases stuff up at Peterson Field, Schreiber Air Force Base, 10th Mountain Division, Fort Carson, 4th Infantry Division. There's Buckley Air Force Base up there. There's all kinds of stuff around here. Just up here working with some people doing surveillance and counter surveillance. But in '97, ATF and DEA started an undercover operation up here called Operation Stingray. And I had a Class 3 machine gun license and silencers and all that. And I had the biggest machine gun shop in the state of Colorado for a while, from '91 to '93. It's called Scientific Systems. And we did a lot of contract work. We built prototype guns for the Navy SEALs and different things and bid it on contracts, so forth. But to make a long story short, I had met one of the agents. There was an undercover agent in this, and he was posing as a gun buyer, so I was selling him some legal guns. And during the course of that operation, I was sitting over his house, and it was an undercover ATF surveillance house. They had little 4mm cameras hidden in the stereo equipment, and they were trying to set up the Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club, which was one of the big 5 groups here in Colorado Springs. And I wasn't a member or anything, but I was a gun dealer, and I'd known several of them, and I'd sold guns to a lot of people, cowboys, bikers, all kinds of people. And, during this operation, and it began in '97, ended in '99, I was over there one day, and me and ATF agent Blake Butler, his nickname was Bo, his real name is Blake L. Butler. The Columbine shooting had just happened up here, and it was the worst high school shooting in U.S. history at that time. And we were sitting around, it was April 22nd of 1999, and we were sitting around in there, and Janet Reno, the U.S. Attorney, and Bill Clinton and all of them were talking about the stuff, calling for more gun control. And he goes, what do you know about them? What do you think about them? And I started telling him some stuff. One of my associates that had done some work with us in the Defense Intelligence Agency, he was also a captain of Vietnam, named Glenn Wilson. He's dead now, so I can use his name. He was head of no-knock narcotics down there in Dade County, Florida, when Janet Reno was the district attorney. And he started telling me all the dirt about her, how she would steal cocaine and heroin out of the evidence room and give it to her lesbian girlfriends and so forth. And when any high-profile, politically connected cases came up, how the evidence would disappear and so forth. And then Clinton brought her up to be the U.S. Attorney General. And so they were all, after Columbine, they were all on there. And I started telling these stories. I didn't know I was on tape. And he asked me, well, do you know where I can get any C4 plastic explosives and all this stuff? And then I started telling him how we used to move a C4 and 1,000-foot rolls of det cord and composition B and, claymores and all the stuff. And because back in the early 80s, we were all in that stuff in Arkansas where Bill Clinton was governor, Hillary was running the Rose Law Firm. And we were involved in 3 multiply nested operations. We call them an umbrella op, but there's 3 different ones, and they were codenamed Jade Bridge, Screwworm, Centaur Rose. Centaur Rose meaning Rose Law Firm. Talk Ape and the cocaine business, and I told them about Barry Seal, who was the pilot from Vietnam. Some of the guys I worked with knew him, and they all took their training at Fort Benning. C-123, it was a little fun. Arms down, to Nicaragua and Central America, and stuff back. Get 10% of the black ops money, for running cover using his office as governor. The land deals, the whitewater deals, all through the Rose Law Firm. Money from this through bank in Little Rock, and then the Worthington Bank in Atlanta, and then it went out to the BCC offshore Cayman. That's the Bank of Commerce and Credit International. And this was all happening about 84, 85. Project Slammer was begun in 84, and it was an NSA, DIA, Navy and Air Force intelligence 10-year study about finding out why our spies turned, okay? And we can get into more of that later. But anyway, I don't want to get too far back in time. But so anyway, I was sitting there. This is April 22nd, 1999, and I am telling about all the ops and shit that we had done, mentioning some things, and I didn't know I was on tape. And I told them about sex trafficking, and I told them I had worked on some sets. They were sex slaves. Kathy O'Brien was one of them. She wrote a book called Transformation of America. People can Google it up and check it out. And anyway, she had told me the story personally to my face about how when Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas with Hillary Clinton, that the CIA was thinking about making him president. He'd already been running ops down there for him. They had passed the Bolin Amendment back in February 1984, and that's when Reagan and Congress said, we're not going to go down and send troops down to Central America. They had the Sandinistas, the Contras all fighting down there. They didn't want to get in another war. Vietnam was still fresh on their mind, and they just didn't want to do it. So we were involved in arming those guys. And we sent a lot of arms down there, and I moved a lot of stuff. They flew them out of the airport. It went down there. The drugs came back. They found their black cops, with arms and drugs, and greeters and everybody, and say, hey, we need money for assassination, and So anyway, and I didn't know it. Baldwin Jr. was filming Ryan and her daughter, 7-year-old daughter Kelly, while they're having sex with the Clintons. They were using that as a potential blackmail thing if Clinton ever did make president, so they have a control on him. And so anyway, fast forward about an hour and a half, like I'm talking now. 5 months later, planted evidence, threw me in federal prison. This was because I was talking about CIA ops. During this tape, all that, I went ahead and ran my mouth too much and talked about Murrah Bldg. We had a lot of offers and a lot of jobs, and the Murrah Bldg was just one of them. And so when I told all that, I didn't know it at the time, but Blake L. Butler, the ATF agent there, in Operation Stingray, I came to find out later that he was the agent one of the agents down at Waco at the Branch Davidian fiasco. He'd also been at the Ruby Ridge Randy Weaver fiasco up in Idaho, where Ricky Weaver had got shot while she was holding that 6-month-old baby. And, that's all in history. And then he had been stationed at the Alfred P. Murrah Building on April 19th, 1995, the day it was bombed. And here I am telling a guy about this offer. Like CIA Black Ops met CIA undercover. So they sealed up the tapes. They sealed everything. CIA confiscated the tapes. They planted me with fake evidence. Okay, I can tell you that story too. It'll take a while, but so they threw me in federal prison at the FCI Inglewood, Colorado facility, and that's where Timothy McVeigh was. They put me 3 cells down from him. Okay, now I had a perfect record. No drugs, no violence, no arrest, no nothing. And they put me in front of Judge Edward Nottingham in the 10th Circuit Court. He was a federal district judge. Come to find out later, Judge Nottingham himself had been nominated by ex-director Central Intelligence George Bush. Okay?
Bush has his hands in just about everything that was CIA.
Oh yeah, and what we found out later was that the 10th Circuit Court, anybody with CIA cases or national security cases like Joe Naccio, with the Key West thing, with NSA or CIA cases or deep state cases were all sent to Nottingham because he was the fixer. He was nominated by a CIA director, and he was posing, like a federal judge. Fix the cases, make sure they never seen the light of day. One of the classic for was if someone had CIA covert stuff in their case, it was all sealed. They would say, well, we need to make sure that this guy's mentally fit, and competent to stand trial. So they would send him to the Springfield Federal Medical Facility, Missouri, meaning what they would usually do if they were CIA operators or NSA operators or anyone that was willing to blow the whistle, they'd give them drugs and screw their minds up and so forth and send them back. And I have some stories in the book where I name, I think, 4 different guys that they did that to. They did not do that to me, but what he did was I had a perfect record, okay, absolutely clean, and he said no bond under any conditions, period. And so I had some associates, they came up with $1 million in cash to make a bond, which would have made a $10 million federal bond, but he said no bond. So they threw me in Supermax, and I ended up being 3 cells down from McVeigh, and I was there actually the day they took him out to execute him at Terre Haute, Indiana. He was executed on June 11, 2001, so I was still in there. I spent 2.5 years in there for something I didn't do. And if you want me to, I can explain how they planted me. But what this was, it's a standard procedure. If you're going to blow the whistle and start talking about things like this, these are high-level ops. They wanted everyone to believe that Timothy McVeigh pulled the Ryder truck up there and detonated and caused that thing. And that's not what happened at all. This was an op staged way before that. McVeigh was the patsy. I was supposed to be the patsy, but I turned the job down, okay, and kept my mouth shut for quite a long time. And it's all detailed in the book. We have dates, times, pictures. I have ATF DEA surveillance tapes here. I have 20,000 plus pages of discovery and court evidence. I hired the Denver Broncos attorney. He was Harvey Steinberg. He's a well-known attorney in the Denver area. We hired him, and I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this stuff. But I can talk about all kinds of sub things to this. This was that, the Murrah Building, okay, Big Patsy. But later, 4 or 5 years later, in 1999, we were all alone in a room. This guy turned out to be an undercover agent. We were on tape. CIA came in, took the test, sealed them. My hearings were all sealed to Judge Nottingham, and my attorney and the assistant U.S. attorney, Guy Till, and 2 CIA agents were there. They had custody of the tapes. They took them away from ATF DEA because they were so sensitive. And hearings, the court transcribers were kicked out of the in-camera reviews in the federal court system. But almost every hearing I had was all sealed. And so some stupid firearms charge just to get them off my back. When I got Leonard to go to bomb the Murrah Bldg and drive right up here to my little cabin in Colorado, I walked out the door. I was fully expecting him to just kill me. And I said, "What's up?" And he said, "Look, I'm just giving you a heads up, brother. If you ever talk about this stuff, we've been ordered to kill you and your family." And then he sighed and he said, "You know, I'm sorry, and it's nothing personal." I said, "Okay, thanks for the heads up, you know." And so I've been quiet all these years. And now that all this stuff with Hillary and the indictments and the pedophile rings and all this stuff's coming up, I decided to get this story out while I'm still alive. I'm 61 years old, but I've been hurt. I've had a lot of broken bones and fractured vertebrae. I'm 100% totally and permanently disabled and have severe PTSD is what my medical files say. So anyway, to make a long story short, Judge Nottingham, after I pled guilty to some stupid thing, it doesn't matter. I just did it to get out. And he then, Judge Nottingham himself, was caught in a sex scandal with prostitutes in Denver. And in the book, I have several newspaper articles and all about him. And he was using his court computers back there and credit cards and getting, you know, sex and, you know, lesbian love in the beach and all that crap. And he had prostitutes in Denver out of the Diamond Cabaret titty bar up there. It's a sex scandal. And so in my case here, Blake Butler during Operation Stingray that Kathy O'Brien had told me about the sex rings and the pedophile rings with Bill and Hillary Clinton and George Bush. And that was all on tape. They sealed the tape. Pedophiles and all the dirty shit they do. It was appointed by Bush in a sex case. So you have one pedophile, or he wasn't a pedophile, but he had one sex offender covering for another one. This book is clear full of the 10th Circuit, U.S. Attorney Tom Strickland, who was appointed Clinton. Well, in my bond hearings, I had reporters from the Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post right there. They did a smear job. I have the articles all in here. And I'll just tell you briefly how they set me up. On the day that we had went over there, April 19, and I was seeing at the TV with Butler. The hidden tapes were running, and we were looking at all the Columbine stuff, and I was running my mouth. I had taken him a Steyr AUG. You know what that is? It's a over in Austria. You know, Russia has AK-47s. You know, and they have Chinese M22 machine guns, the chrome line barrels, hammer forged receivers, and all that. And that's their standard military issue. We have M16s here in our country. That's our standard military issue. And in Austria, they have standard military issue guns called Steyr AUGs. Well, the semi-auto version of those guns were exported to the U.S. And I had one of those that was semi-automatic. And then I had 2 machine gun trigger packs with it. Both of these items were legal until they're put together. When they're put together, you're supposed to have an ATF tax stamp. If you convert it and make an illegal machine gun, that's a 2 to 10 federal offense under the NFA Act, National Firearms Act. So I was sitting there in the living room, okay, underneath these cameras. I didn't know they were there. And I told Bo all this stuff about the Murrah Bldg and CIA and the sex rings and all this crap, all the, you know, the cocaine from Central America and all that stuff. And he said, well, can you go ahead and convert that into a machine gun? And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And he kept pressuring me over and over and over. Finally, about the third time, he said, come on, show me how to do that. And I yelled at him. I said, no, and I won't do it. If you want to take those two, do it yourself, that's your business. So he said, okay, I'll do it. Well, he took it to the ATF office, and they converted that gun into an illegal machine gun. Back and cut the tapes and cut the part out where I said, no, that's a felony and I won't do it. That converted to the 10th Circuit grand jury, but I had a machine gun. Okay? That did me. With evidence. Expert later, we had proof tapes had been cut. Expert I hired was a guy named Val. He's a very hot trick, and he's like preparation for the CCI working the White House. He was a very high-level electronics guy. So I took him the tapes with proof that the ATF had cut the tapes. They were involved in a conspiracy to obstruct justice with the CIA and the 10th Circuit Federal Court and the Department of Justice. And you got to remember what we're dealing with here. Tom Strickland, the United States Attorney at the time, he was appointed directly by Bill Clinton. The judge at the time, Judge Edward Nottingham, was nominated directly by ex-Director Central Intelligence George Bush. So the fix was in on my case. I mean, there's really nothing you can do. And so I wrote a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I said, the reason why you guys treating me this way is because I talked about Bill Clinton dealing drugs in Arkansas and sex rings and all this stuff. So they called a special meeting up at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay? And I went up there. That was on May the 2nd of 2001. And I had got a bond finally after about 18 months, and I was waiting for my court thing. And so on May the 2nd, 2001, we went into the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it was Harvey Steinberg, ATF agent Blake Butler. By then, Vice President Al Gore and Janet Reno had awarded him the nation's top cop award in Washington. You know, they gave him the top cop award, all right? When we went in there, I didn't tell anyone, but I snuck surveillance equipment inside the United States Attorney's Office in Denver. They have x-ray machines, and I recorded them in there. Agents. Assistant United States Attorney Guy Till and ATF agent Lee Glovitz out of the Colorado Springs field, and then of course the nation's top cop Blake Butler, who I told the whole story about bombing the Murrah Building and everything too, you know, and he had planted me with evidence, and this was the big cover-up. So they didn't know they were being recorded. We talked for about an hour, okay? These tapes, I took the tapes after I made them, and I took them to Val, the CIA tape expert, and he put them on CD disc and broke them up into tracks for court purposes. And what's on these tapes is extremely explosive. I mean, no pun intended, you know, with the Murrah Building. I have on this tape cop, State 10th Circuit, CIA. I have a lot of stuff like this. Now, these tapes, we hit them. He's everywhere. The public. I have use in future. I'm going to send my presidential pardon, which I've almost finished, Donald Trump. I'm hoping one day to be able to get a pardon, and I'm hoping one day, like ATF agent Blake Butler. I mean, he is a satanic criminal. He was at the Waco compound where all those people were killed. I mean, there were 54 dead and 21 children. I have a story about that in the book that I think you and I talked about that last night, about Ron Cole, the guy who was knew David Koresh. And so anyway, this ATF agent Butler, he was at Ruby Ridge, Idaho. You know, Randy Weaver was Special Forces up there. And when I was in prison, he sent me a book. It's called The Federal Siege at Ruby Ridge. He wrote a book. They got a $3.5 million wrongful death settlement out of the feds. And he wrote that book, and then he sent me an autographed copy. And he told me, you know, hang in there because I know what it's like fighting these dirty feds. You know, they're criminals. They're the highest level. Now, not all of them are, you know, but Blake Butler is. And Bill and Hillary Clinton and Judge Nottingham, Tom Strickland, they're all tied in. I'll give you an example. Tom Strickland was running for Senate here in Colorado against Wayne Allard, the Republican incumbent. And Tom Strickland had worked for a law firm here in Denver called Brownstein, Hyatt, and Faber. That job when Bill Clinton appointed him U.S. Attorney in the 10th Circuit. People don't know, Norman Brownstein, he used to work for the Council of Six. The Council of Six was a group of 6 high-level attorneys that worked today. And that was back in the 70s when George Bush himself was a director. And he worked for Clinton. And you get the Clinton Bush, all through this. Families need to be broken up. 20 around Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. He's going to testify, and people talking to the grand jury, Vince Foster, Seth Rich, the list goes on and on and on.
Oh, and just you're listening, smashing the like button on this. There's 116 people and posting this everywhere to get this information out. His wrist is live for to take you up. It is up to you. Ask and do now. Go ahead, Cody. Sorry, I tell you what. Let's transition a little bit because people were really kind of wondering, why do you think the Murrah building, the federal Murrah building, was blown up?
Okay, well, I know why, and a lot of this stuff may be kind of shocking to people, but this is all detailed in the book. I mean, dates, times, names. You know, we don't put names of any guys that are still operational. We can't do that, but most of the guys like Captain Wilson and Duke Flagler, they're all dead. So anyway, I'm going to lay this out, and this is very, very important because no one knows this stuff hardly, except black operators, I guess. But there were 3 main reasons why they blew that building up. Okay, back, like I said, they had all those operations going on in Mena, in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was governor, and that stuff's well documented. You get on the internet and check a lot of that stuff out. But during the course of those operations, they were washing a lot of money. It was approximately $100 million a month in coke money and stuff. So Reagan and them were getting what they wanted. They were sending arms down there to counter the Soviet threat in Nicaragua. And then the CIA liked drug money. And anyway, during that time, some of the civilian law enforcement in Arkansas got wind of it. And the ABI, that's the Arkansas Bureau of Investigation, they started their own investigation. And the IRS, several of them started. Well, to make a long story short, there's a whole chapter of this stuff in this book. To make a long story short, all these records, these law enforcement records, investigative records, they were stored in the FBI office in Little Rock. Now, to when Bill Clinton goes into the whitewater investigations in around. That's when Congress, all the real estate deals down there with the Clintons. And so, that's July 26, 1994. That's about a year before the Murrah Building was blown up. According to Tulsa Police Detective Paul Craig Roberts, one day, records, criminal stuff around the Clinton, money laundering, everything, sex. All those records were ordered moved from the FBI office in Little Rock, Arkansas, over to the Murrah Building. Okay, and Paul Craig Roberts got he wrote an article about it. He got a call from an anonymous tip, anonymous source, and said that they moved those records over there. Okay, now those records were stored there when the Murrah Building blew up. Meanwhile, after the Whitewater thing investigation, then Bill Clinton's impeachment came up later. Okay, so there was a lot of records that could have been subpoenaed and used later, and they conveniently disappeared. Also, the Waco records, from the February 28th, 93 thing in Waco. A lot of those investigative records. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here about the Waco thing down there. So anyway, those records were stored there. The second, I'll just get to the main reasons, and it deals with the cover-up of the Gulf War syndrome. So we've got to go back through a little bit of quick history. This is all detailed in this book. It's almost 400 pages, but we have short time, so we'll just do this quickly. Back in January of 1991, Desert Storm occurred. We had to send our troops over to Iraq. Prior to that, in the 80s, there was the Iran-Iraq War, and Saddam Hussein was a paid asset for CIA. That's also covered in the book. But to make a long story short, we had secretly armed him, and 10-to-1 infantry advantage over Iraq. So we were worried that they would own Iraq. Case, we secretly saying our very virulent pathogen. It was a strain of anthrax, Detroit, Maryland, where it was developed, and that was a strain that was weaponized. That means the size of the spores were reduced, the protein code was changed genetically so that it would be easily absorbed in combatants' tissues and so forth. So we covertly armed him. We also covertly armed him with the 123 Hawkeye cluster bombs. These were made under covert. They had arms factories down in Argentina, which they got our blueprints for them and sent them down over there. They were made up in the world at that time. Biological, chemical. So anyway, I'm trying to make a long story short here. The Iran-Iraq War invaded Kuwait, and then said, our former ally is, former asset is now allowed to demonize Saddam, and they had to send our troops over there in a hurry. Anthrax back are 6-month course. You take one shot a month, and then their 6 months go by to develop immunity. And we didn't have time. The Department of Defense, the Pentagon did not have time to wait. So they did a crash course, and they went to develop a new anthrax vaccine, and they came up with one that only took 1 month. Just one shot, 1 month. But to do that, they use adjuncts in the vaccines called squalene. And it's like Sarcor, but it's an autoimmune booster, okay? And they then went to covertly to companies like Bioport and so forth, and they produced these vaccines. Then they waived the normal FDA testing requirements, okay, and so they could get our guys vaccinated. And the first lots of these things went to Dover Air Force Base, and the pilots started getting sick, and all this stuff started happening. So they started this mass vaccination program for anthrax with untested vaccines and experimental stuff, and they got all our guys sick. That was part of the Gulf War syndrome sickness, okay? Now, the second part of the sickness, all our veterans coming back sick from over there, was the depleted uranium usage. They had been tested over at Dugway Proving Grounds earlier, and Desert Storm 1 was the first military conflict that the U.S. had openly used depleted uranium weapons. And the two main types of these weapons they used were the 30mm chain gun weapons, the tank busters, and then the second type was the sabot rounds in the M1A1 tanks. And Tim McVeigh was a tank commander over there with confirmed kills. He got a Bronze Star in the book too. But anyway, it's very efficient. And like in the M1A1 Abrams tanks, when you fire one of those sabot rounds, they have a velocity of approximately 5,200 feet per second, and they have enough to hit a Soviet T-54 tank, which is what Saddam predominantly had. Their turrets weigh 11 tons, and when you hit them with one of those things, it'll blow that turret up like a tumbleweed. But it makes a large fireball. And in that high heat, was actually forming new compounds like uranium oxide, uranium dioxide. So these fireballs would fall down after these big battles, and all that was still radioactive. And it fell down in the sand in the desert and stuff. This is the first used in a real micron sanium and gear for U.S. military issue. Their filters only went down to 10 microns. Guys and girls, they were breathing this stuff, thinking that they're, and so battle after battle, week after week, as all this stuff was being, this ordinance was being expended, they admitted to using approximately 200 tons of mildly radioactive uranium-238. All of this stuff started accumulating in the troops' bodies. And low-level radioactive stuff, it accumulates in the thyroid glands and in the ovaries if you're a woman or testicles if you're a man. And so the guys were being infected and didn't know it. And Desert Storm got over and they all started coming home. And, all the guys, first thing they want to do is make love to their wife and get home and everything. And so some of these children started popping out 9-10 months later. And what was happening was the low-level radiation from these depleted uranium weapons was being transferred in the semen of the men into the ovaries of their wives back home. This low-level radiation then infected their ovaries. Then when they had the child had the radiation in them. And you can see where this is going. When they first discussed this back in like 93, 94, about 3 years after the year was over, all these soldiers started reporting all these sicknesses and all these strange things. So the War Syndrome. They started having hearings to do culpability. People were sick. The wives were sick, were getting sick. The kids were showing symptoms. The Pentagon did not know how far down the genetic chain this would go. Sick wife, sick kid. Great. This could have turned into a hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of medical. Just like Agent Orange stuff in Vietnam, it waits 20, 30 years. The symptoms show up and people get sick. There's cancers. There's all this stuff. I operate on all cancers. I've got some. Now, to make, here's the point of why they blew up the Murrah building. The main reason. A Republican from Connecticut was sitting on one of the armed services committees, and the Gulf War Syndrome, there was multiple decades, they said, and we want all the medical records. There's approximately 480,000 U.S. troops. There's 28 nations involved in the coalition over there, but we had about 480,000 of our troops, men and women, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and so forth. And so he ordered the FBI to go around and gather all the medical records. And all these medical records were going to be used to determine the settlements for how much money these people were going to get, because they were disabled from all this stuff.
Cody, can you kind of back the mic off just a little bit and see if it can't make it a little bit clearer, because it is kind of getting a little fuzzy for me too. People are having a little hard time hearing. Try just backing off a little bit so it doesn't reverberate so bad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I should have told you sooner, but I wasn't really thinking. But yeah, that's what we all, because I help run a little radio show, and that's kind of what happens. But no, carry on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted it to be clearer for everybody.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so anyway, where we are right here with this was in, I think it was 1994, Senator Shays, the Republican from Connecticut, was sitting on the committees to determine the Gulf War syndrome thing. And so they had ordered the FBI to collect all these records. So the military, some of them had gotten out. They were going to see civilian doctors. Some of them were overseas. They were spread all out. It was a nightmare, a logistical nightmare. I went around trying to gather all the records. So when that on 1995, records were lost. September of 1996, congressional hearings on the Gulf War syndrome. You know, had blown up. And the department at the hearing of our goal here. So the Department of Defense for possibly hundreds of billions or maybe even trillions of dollars. Part of this radiation thing was going to go intergenerationally.
Right. Here we're talking multi-generations.
Never used those weapons before. And then when they discovered all of this stuff that I'm talking about, a huge DuPont settlement for our veterans that came back with Agent Orange exposure. So this could have been a really big deal, and that there is sufficient for them to that. You know, as like a field commander, all you have to do is sacrifice the life of 168 civilians in a little building, and then you get yourself out of all of these other problems. And so that they staged that up. They knew those Gulf War hearings, syndrome hearings were ongoing. And that's why they approached me in October of 94, you know, to bomb that building. And I wouldn't do it on patriotic grounds. And plus I was fixing to retire anyway. And so then in 95 it went off and all the records are gone. And the Waco stuff's gone, and Bill Clinton and all of his stuff in Arkansas that had been transferred over there, those records are gone. And the Gulf War syndrome stuff's all swept under the rug. And so there may have been auxiliary reasons that I do not know about. But in my opinion, those are the three, those are the two basic reasons why that thing was done. The other reason was in early, 94, I think it was, Bill Clinton had tried to get the Anti-Effective Death Penalty Act passed, and he couldn't get the votes in Congress. And then in April 19th, 1995, after that building went up, you know, a terrorist event's a good way to scare those Congress guys into voting, you know, for more stuff. And then they retried it, sent it in there, and they all voted for it. So they got that thing. That thing for constitutional rights. If you ever, that law, the Anti-Effective Death Penalty and Anti-Terrorism Act, if I'm saying it right, you can Google that out and research it. A lot of our rights, kind of like the Patriot Act did, you know, after 9/11. You stage a false flag event, you scare the hell out of the people. That fear. You come in and get people to voluntarily give up their freedoms and give up their God-given constitutional rights. So, my stepdad at Pearl Harbor, the morning it was 1941, 1947, took his basic at Fort Hood, and he was in Pacific Command, assigned to Pearl Harbor, and he was there and survived the attack at Pearl Harbor. And then he went to Guadalcanal, and my uncle, he was over in the Battle of Bulge in World War II, and got caught behind enemy lines and managed to escape and made it to Switzerland. He was almost dead, but he got out. And these are the guys that raised me, you know, and I was raised real patriotic for our country. And they fought the great evil, the satanic evil of Adolf Hitler and Hillary Clinton and these people like Blake Butler. This same satanic evil has raised its head in America. Shadow governments. And they're running things underneath. They're hiding behind the legitimate positions in government, like governors, presidents, secretary of state, and so forth. And they are bringing that same satanic evil onto our country. And it is time for all of us to stand up. I kept my mouth quiet a long time because I was afraid Bill and Hillary Clinton had me killed or the CIA would kill me or whatever. And so I made up my mind when I went public with this. It took me almost 4.5 years to write this book. And I have these secret tapes that were made. I have evidence. I have proof. No one's ever seen it. I made up my mind. It was my time to stand up. And I have to be ready to go back to prison or be shot. I have to be ready to lose my life. And it's the only way you can face these kind of people. It's the only way you can face Adolf Hitler. He was evil. He was satanic. Someone has to stand up to this evil. We all have to join together. And that's why I hope Donald Trump, with all the pedophile rings and the indictments that are coming out now, I hope that we can make a dent in this. People have killed more people than smallpox. I'm up that I can get this story out, and I hope you link this book. You know, if people want a copy of this, I have an edit copy. You can put the email down there. I'm looking for publishers for this book, but as you can tell, a lot of people don't want to publish stuff like this.
Yeah,
but now,
in fact, just go ahead, because a lot of people are asking, what is the name of that book, and be really clear. I put some information about you yesterday, but I want to get it all out on this particular video or blog, whatever the hell they call these damn things. Go ahead and tell everybody what is the name of the book and how they can get a hold of you, and if you're charging, what are you asking for a copy of it?
The name of the book is called Choosing Dark Secrets of the Oklahoma City Bombing.
And that's Choosing the Light, Dark Secrets of the Oklahoma City Bombing, correct?
And it was when they offered me the job to blow up that building when I made that choice. I was sitting there looking at the cash, you know. I made that choice in my mind to choose the light. You know, to not do any more evil, darkness. So that's why I named that book Choosing the Light. I remember I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I've signed it with several times. There's things I haven't even told you about. I never even in 4.5 years of litigation, and then finally, tape evidence into the 10th Circuit. I had scheduled a hearing to hear all this evidence on July 24th, 2003. It was 2 weeks before this big hearing. I was struck in a freak auto pedestrian accident and nearly killed. And I can't prove it, but I believe it was the CIA or the ATF. It was a shadow government trying to kill me. And then 2-3 weeks later, after I got out of the hospital, I went to a physical therapy thing, and I was walking out with a cane, and I was hobbling along real slow, and sitting off in the back of the parking lot in a Colorado Springs police cruiser was ATF agent Blake Butler, dressed up as a cop. So as I'm walking out, they didn't kill me with the first try. He charges me with that car. He floored it, jumped the curb, sparks flying everywhere, came right at me. And he was about to crush me between his police cruiser and my car. At the last minute, he swerved sideways, threw rocks all over me. He was about 4 feet away from me in the front window, and he pointed at me, and he shook his finger at me. This was 2 weeks before the hearing, where we were going to take all the tapes, all the evidence to prove all this stuff to get it into court. The tape expert for the CIA, he told me, he said, "Do you have any idea what you have in your hands?" He said, "You've got enough evidence to take down the whole Colorado Springs ATF field office. You've got them on perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to obstruct, all kinds of stuff." And he said, "They're never going to let you get this into court. Never. Because they're going to lose their jobs and go to prison." And so I just pled guilty to something, pick a charge, any charge, you know, that's what the prosecuting attorney said. Just pick a charge, any charge, you're out of here. And it all gets swept under the rug. So that's what I did. And then I waited years and years and years. Is choosing the light, dark secrets of the Oklahoma Robert Cody Snodgres. This book was not edited by the CIA Publication Review Board, because anyone who signs national security oaths or work for the CIA, actually, they are required by law to take any publications before them, and then they redact them and censor them and everything. This thing's uncensored. This is the truth, the deep truth, that they don't want out. And I'm hoping that Trump and some of the other people that are out there, I know that there's other people like me. I know there's other building people in the 9/11 thing and the Sandy Hook shootings and all these other false flags. I know you guys are out there. Stand up. It's time for us to stand up for the soul of America. This is our country. If we don't stand up now and we let them take this over, we're all going to end up with a microchip in our arm.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably ran across a few guys, probably special ops, that may have already been chipped, and that would probably go down into a whole nother rabbit trail.
Scott, can I say one thing about that?
Yes, please.
Here's what's in the book. I have a whole section on Timothy McVeigh. When he was a Desert Storm Tank Commander, January 91 over there, before he went over, he was getting these standard shots like all the troops. What he found out later was they used a covert test program. They injected implantable microchips in some of the troops and didn't tell them. And what the test was, these were guys out on the field, usually infantry units or forward observation units or alert teams or something like that. And what it was a test of the Lockheed Martin BEAST system. BEAST, B-E-A-S-T. That stands for Battle Engagement Area Simulator Tracker. These were Lockheed Martin satellites, and they were designed to track and trace individual field units, soldiers, during real-time battlefield conditions from space in wartime environments like the Middle East with dust, dirt, oil well fires, and all the stuff with battles. And, you know, a lot of the guys that get blown up, you know, if they have their dog tags, you might find the dog tags over 100 yards or more away, and a leg over here and an arm over there. And they figured if they could inject these chips in the torsos of our troops, that if they were dismembered, you know, by IED attacks or other types of explosives, that the torso would remain and they could identify the remains that way. There were reasons why they were testing these implantable microchips, and it had to do with when they're going to try to, the New World Order is going to try to microchip all of us, then they can read us from space with satellites. And so all that story is in this book too. So I just want to tell you that. McVeigh found out later, he started getting sores, and they got that thing out, and he wrote letters to his sister Jennifer and talked about how dirty the Army was for doing that and so on. So all that, there's a lot of stuff in here. Yeah.
Look, you're putting it out there and you're bringing this all to light. I've just given you to talk about it with people, because when they hear this type of information, the whole thing is they were trying to keep this from being able to get out, because that's one of their modus operandi.
But, you know, a lot of people don't know, you know, McVeigh, when he got back from there, he went Special Forces. and they had the whole group of 100 or some odd guys, and the CIA ran their psych profiles, and they picked him and 10 other guys out and offered them jobs to be covert agents. Their front was going to be working as a Special Forces Army guy, but they were really supposed to be working for the CIA, and they wanted him to fly dope and do assassinations, all while using the Army as their front. And McVeigh was a patriot. He said, no, I don't want to do it, and he quit. And then he went up to Buffalo, New York, and he got a job at Calspan as a security guard. But he had already been implanted by that microchip and complained about it, and they got it out of him. And the Calspan place up there, it was really crazy. I mean, it had astronauts and F-16 Eagle guys in it, and he worked at the Advanced Technology Center in Buffalo, New York, and the facilities included radar and energy shock tunnels, RF radio frequency simulators for electronic warfare, microscopic engineering. There were world-renowned scientists there. It was a cutting edge of classified research. And part of the U.S. Air Force's electronic warfare system, the Red Cap, they call it, that was a code name, that was done there. And so McVeigh was right in there with telerobotics and artificial intelligence and all the crap that was going on at Calspan, and that's where he was approached, I believe, to be recruited to bomb the Murrah Building. Because it's a classic situation where you set up a guy, you isolate him and alienate him. You take an old veteran that's used to combat and you stick him in some stupid security guard where he's bored shitless, and you offer him a job, and he already had a motivation to get back at the government because he had been implanted covertly with microchips. They didn't tell him from it in Desert Storm. The story in the book is when he was down there, Tim McVeigh was at the Waco compound. He brought night vision down there. They were all camped around the perimeter. All these guys, but they didn't get caught up when that siege began. And the Fed set up a ring around that compound. And at night, there were these black choppers flying around at night with no markings at all. And these guys were seeing green lights, red lights, orange lights going down like laser beams. They didn't quite know what they were because they were civilians. I wish we had night vision. Well, Tim McVeigh was camped there, and he had some military night vision stuff. And he said, here, look through this, and you can see. It was Branch Davidian. It's a standard drill technique where you deny the high ground. If they lower places in the building, then you can collapse the perimeter on the outside closer to the building. That's just they gave them the night vision to watch their branch, the whole stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of cover-ups here. There's a lot of mistakes. But I'd like to say also to our brothers and sisters out in law enforcement and fire and medical and CIA and NSA and all the guys, there are a lot of good people. There are a lot of good Americans. But embedded within our legitimate government are these Satanists, these pedophiles, these criminals, and they are hiding behind their positions in government to form a shadow government and dictating our lives and our policy, and they're wrecking our country, they're destroying our Constitution, they're ruining our economy. And if we Americans don't stand up and don't learn the truth and dig deep and don't believe all the crap they put out on these medias, fall. And they're going to pull another big false flag event pretty soon is my prediction. I don't know anything about it. I have no operational knowledge like I did about the Murrah Building. But it is time for us to stand up. The time is right now. I mean, if you want to end up in a FEMA camp and have a microchip like Tim McVeigh, they were testing those things. They were testing the protein coats on them because of the autoimmune rejection system of the body. Field test all this stuff, and they've got this stuff pretty well done now. They're chipping dogs, cows, cats. You know that, Scott.
Oh yeah, every day. In fact, now you can even laugh when you see these little pet stands where they say, hey, come here and have your dog. I'm like, that's just mind control to get people used to having things chipped. Animals, well, people are next, and they'll just fall right in line. There's already reports of people over in like Sweden and stuff taking the chip, wanting the chip, so that they can like get in and out of a building easy. Best thing I have ever heard in my life. You were talking about people standing up, and you actually video of mine that I put out just yes. You saw it, or maybe it was the day before you saw it, and you wrote me an email and kind of gave me a brief overview of everything. Video, I had said that, you know, I heard chatter on the internet saying that there could be up to 5,000 indictments. I got an email this morning ago, like Sunday. The last count that I had heard, there was only about 100 indictments. I had an email today sheet of all the federal district courts across America, 4,289 sealed indictments in almost every federal courthouse across the nation. Texas, in the Eastern District, there are 54. District is 96. The Southern District, 131, and the Western District, 137. So,
right on. That's wonderful, and that's why I came out at this time with this stuff. I've been sitting on it a long time, and I've watched them shit all over our country. I've watched the Clintons. They are satanic evil. They are pure satanic evil. They belong in prison. Okay? If the truth ever gets out, I'm hoping that what the feds will do is get some of these indictments, they'll get everyone to snitch, and then what they're going to do is work their way up to the big fish, see? So I'm hoping that all this will come out, and that's why I did this now, was so I could blend my story in with this wave of indictments and this wave of truth seekers standing up, because I swear to God, I swear by my life and my love of it, that this is the truth. This is the hidden truth here I've kept for all these years. And I'm not trying to sell books. You know, I could care less. My country, this country is more important. This is what my dad fought for at Pearl Harbor. Okay? All the veterans that are in the VA hospitals and lost their legs. No one cares. All these men that are sick with Agent Orange. All of our Gulf War syndrome guys from Afghanistan and Iraq. They're sick and suffering. Okay? What about all these people? What about our guys? While Clintons get rich, evil will stop. And I'm sorry if I get a little bit emotional about it, but as far as these indictments going out, Stock, there's something Martin Luther King once said when he was still alive. He said, "The day we see truth and do not speak is the day we begin to die." So I decided that I was going to come forward. It happened to me, and I don't care. I'm standing up for America. I'm standing up for our veterans. I'm standing up for the good men and women who make our background of this country. Those of the shadow government, like Donald Trump said, we're going to drain the swamp. I'm offering my testimony some time ago, offering this story so that hopefully other people out there talk. Because this is, I've seen what the CIA does. I've been in renditions. I've seen assassinations. I've seen explosions. I know how powerful they are. And up for our country. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, and I commend you for it, because it's white hats and black hats all the time. And one of our mottos is there are some good people in the government. We're not going to deny that.
Right.
The problem is they're unwilling to come forward with the information because of their fear for their jobs and their life. And it's a situation that has been created by apathetic Americans that won't get behind and drive the narrative so that the mainstream press can't ignore it anymore. That's why if a story like this was to go viral, you would probably be talking to Trump. And they would definitely want to hear the timeline that you can put together so succinctly that is going to make everybody aware of. It's just like what Edward Snowden came out. Everybody knew or thought that we were being spied upon. Proof. It just took that one person to come out. We are being spied on. And you're coming out and saying, yes, this was an inside job. A lot of people know it, but a lot of people can't put the pieces together. And you have been able to put all the pieces together and detail it out. It is going to be common knowledge now. Really waves through the American people. The American people are going to have to wake up and be able to stomach the truth. It's going to be easy for some people to believe.
Shot, you know, we all know there's a rabbit hole. How deep does it go? And that's what I'm showing is, you know, I was in it, I lived it. I had to wait till all these people died. You can talk about a black op like this. I would have been killed, okay? And all I had to do was 2.5 years in prison. A lot of other people were murdered. In the book, I have, I don't know, maybe 15 different stories of people who were directly material witnesses at the Murrah building, and they were all found suicided, murdered, you know, the whole story. People around the Clintons, there's about 121 of them. So I just hope that we can expose this stuff and get it out. And I'm 61 years old. If they come to kill me, this is proof. It'll be proof if, you know, I'm not going to commit suicide. I'm not going to do any of this. To my doctor before I put on stent where I sent you open ears. He has a top secret clearance. He works on generals and stuff down at Carson and different places. And I told him, I said, doctor, I'm fixing to put all this stuff out about the Murrah building. I got a book, I got CDs, I'm going to do radio interviews and stuff. I will not commit suicide. The only medications I take are what you give me as a doctor. So if they find my body somewhere and there's some weird stuff in it, or a weird injection mark somewhere, that means they caught me and tortured me and gave me some stuff. I will not commit suicide. I'm not breaking any laws. So if I get planted with evidence again, you know, to shut me up like they did before, that it'll all be bogus. It'll all be proof that this stuff is true.
Oh, I don't doubt you, not one bit. So let me go. You want me to go ahead and give everybody your email address that can contact you that would like the book?
Yeah, I just want to say this about these emails. I've got an email address, and I'll give it to you now, and then I'll tell you what just happened. This email address is Cody Golden, Golden ELK. I'm part Cherokee, so it's Cody Golden Elk at yahoo.com.
Okay, let me just repeat it one more time because this is all one word. Cody Golden Elk, CODYGOLDENELK.com. So that's right. The email address, y'all.
Okay, and Yeah, they can email me and we'll work a deal on the book. We might sell these CDs for like $10 or $12 because we got to do a shipping and handling thing. I only have a few of them here, but we've spread these copies out before I went public. I made copies of all those tapes at the U.S. Attorney's Office no one's ever seen. I made copies of the CD. We spread them all around the country. There are these. And I had some overseas interviews set up in Europe through Spain last Wednesday. It was the date, November 22nd. And big link. And they were going to go through a bunch of different servers over there. We had it all set up. And before this interview was scheduled, the computer got hacked and it crashed, and it just totally with this computer. I mean, I couldn't get in or out on my emails. I couldn't get anything. And you know, I had a lot of computer code. It shut on code, and that happened, and I couldn't get the interview out. So whatever they got to do, and it's a battle between the forces of the darkness. That's it.
Agreed. And like I say, once this video gets out, there's 122 people watching right now. You've got 87 thumbs up, and everybody listening and watching this video to smash the like button and post it on your social media to get it out there as far as you possibly can. If that's the only thing you can do, then by God, get off your butt and do it. Do something. So
right, thank you, and I want to thank you for everything, because I know I've been talking real fast. This book is really detailed. It's got a lot of stuff in it. I've got, you know, the college degrees in math and physics, and I'm highly intelligent. I'm not just bragging, but people like you that are helping us get this out. The more this gets out, the less chance I'll have heat on me. I mean, if I was just one guy talking like I was with Agent Butler, they can hammer me because nobody knows it's going on. But if there's thousands and tens of thousands of people who know, and then I die, I slip on a banana peel, or I hit my head in the shower, or any of their horse shit to shut people up. Okay? That will prove this stuff's true.
and that's why I want to get it out there as far and wide as possible, because it is only going to protect you. You start shining the light on this, they're going to run. They're going to scurry to their little corner, because what they do is get caught with blood on their hands. It is turning. There is a lot of people that are waking up. Many people have already woke up. I mean, they just flat woke the fuck up. And those are the people that are absolutely going to do something. Just by me telling everybody to smash the like button is 105.
Yeah. So, well, Scott, I'm sorry if I interrupted, but the good thing is that we all are standing together. Standing with you, you're standing with me, the people that are listening are standing, and this is the future of our country. This is our children and children. Okay? I love America. It has given me everything. I love what I don't like what it is now. It's turning into just a huge police state. But if enough of us stand together and rise up and begin to resist this shadow government, and I'll tell you what, Scott, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if these 4,000 some odd indictments, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if some of the people that I talk about in this book have been indicted. It wouldn't surprise me.
I don't doubt it one bit, and that's the thing, to be more, because just like you were talking about, once these people start getting these indictments and start getting their butts hauled into court, they're going to roll over on people. And I've said this over and over. These people are going to roll over on everybody they can to try to get their ass out of a crack. But it's only going to bring in more indictments, more people. and start shining the light on just how corrupt this government, the shadow government, has become. I want to thank you personally for reaching out and contacting me, because when you saw that video where I was calling that there was going to be 5,000 indictments. And what was that? What did you tell me when you saw that and listened to the video? What was that you told me?
About half of it, you know, my 6 cents, or what you want to call it, just said, you know, copy of your little thing, and who can help get it out. You know, I just felt a resonance with it, like a truth seeker and a truth teller. And, you know, the mainstream media is so controlled. I mean, it's not even worth talking to those people. Somebody like me, they'll just shut me out and call me a kook. And then they'll say, well, you can't believe Cody because he's a convicted felon. Well, they'll forget to tell you convicted felon is because they did me with fake evidence and lied to the grand jury to shut me up about the Murrah Building bombing.
They got to discredit you in order to make it to where it looks like you're just a loon walking around. That's how they operate. I mean, we all know this. Nobody is stupid to this stuff anymore. We all know that all these wars are bankers' wars, bullets and bandages to both sides. People like y'all, Terry, to go in there and do duplicitous acts on, and that's why.
Right, and I'm no angel. I mean, I was one of them. I walked on the dark side, and the reason I did all that stuff was to make big money, and I made a lot of money. But then when they started turning against their own people, like the Murrah Building and stuff, that's when it just cut it for me. It's like, you know, what good is the money if the country you're living in is a slave state?
That's right. And now, you know, I was talking to another buddy of mine. I said, yeah, I'm sure he went after the money, but now, as easy as they gave it to you, they just as easily took it away and totally destroyed you, damn near killed you. But the information that you have is going to be a bombshell, and this shit is getting out. Trust me.
Okay, well, one more thing I want to say, Scott, is that chapter 10 of this book deals with CIA mind control. And I was involved in some of that stuff. I worked with some of the MK Ultra people like Kathy O'Brien, and then fast forward into 1990s, early, the Project Slammer thing. That was, you know, we had our station chief over in Moscow, Oliver James. He came back to the States and had turned for the Russians, the KGB turned him. And then there was Robert Hansen, which was the 26-year terrorist. He had turned for the Russians. And then we had that Scott Walker, I think his name was, that was selling missile telemetry secrets for the Navy and Office of Naval Intelligence to the Russians. And there was a spy of our guys who had defected. And so they created Project Slammer as a way to study behavioral science as to why our agents would defect. And underneath that, there was a vanilla part of the op and a black part of the op, which was using ways to long distance without any traces. You know, like you put a hot dog in a microwave and you cook it and you can see it swell up. They were using microwave devices to use directed energy weapons to terminate people at a distance so there wouldn't be any traces. And so that's what a lot of that chapter is about. So if you ever want to do like another interview or something about that kind of stuff, I know a whole lot about that, but it's highly technical. And I can cut down a lot of the science into layman's terms. Like that. But this Oklahoma City bombing is just one false flag. It's just one event. The assassination, you know, I stood at Dealey Square. I stood where Oswald stood before I was in Dallas when I was a kid. But you look at all these things through here, 9/11, you know, Sandy Hook, this Las Vegas shooting. You know, you start looking at these things, and it's a series of government. false flag operations. And then they cover up, lie. It's got to stop, or else we're going to lose our country.
Did you hear, and if reports were going around, you know, those big forest fires that were out in California? One guy has come out and said it was all directed energy weapons that started the fires because it melted cars. No forest fire can melt cars and aluminum and steel. So they are pretty much convinced they were directed energy weapons that were setting off out there. And I was talking to a guy today, because you brought up something about you had a bad feeling that there could be another major false flag go off.
Yep.
There's a lot of chatter going around right now about another huge false flag, and nobody can really put their finger on it because, you know, there's so much.
They're setting us up. And that thing in California, I was out there, and I do not have any operational knowledge about that or any intelligence. I'm a scientist, and I try to stick with things that I can prove. But, you know, like you say, in Black Ops, the proofs, if there's any pictures, they're lost. You know, if there's any records, there's a fire, or they get blown up like in the Murrah Building. And so getting any kind of actionable intelligence is very difficult in these things. But they do have laser weapons they've been testing. And in my book here, I tell a story about Army Ranger Sequest who FBI Black Ops down in Nicaragua while they were field testing the Reagan SDI, the Star Wars Defense Initiative stuff. And I witnessed some of the stuff being used. So they do have that stuff. It's highly classified. And so that could have very well happened out there. And they could have had ground teams those attacks from the air, and they had ground agents go set off the fires when it was supposed to be windy. And that would be the fire on the ground would be the cover for the attacks from the air. They cover the attacks real good. Everything's highly classified. We're looking at the Millimplex thing, and they've murdered people. I might be another one here. I don't know.
I hope not, too. I mean, there's no reason you should have to be shot in the head twice, suicided, you know, like that really happens. That's just more proof that, you know, Vince Foster was murdered. You know, you don't shoot yourself twice in the head. It just don't happen.
In the book about that Vince Foster thing, and they hired these New York police detectives to go in there, and they did their own stuff, and they published all this stuff saying there's no way that it was a hit, you know, and everything. But then again, the media hushed it all up, and you know, so we're dealing with a big thing here that's very big. The time we've had here, I appreciate the time, but we've only scratched the surface of this stuff. It is just time for us to start digging and stand up as Americans. We need to stand together. We need to stop all this racial violence and all this stuff. We need to be together because we cannot defeat this satanic deep state that's in our country. I hope Donald Trump and them can get their act together. I admire the man. He's taken on a huge octopus. But people around the world had to stand up to Adolf Hitler. They had to join together. It's the only way we could defeat the Nazis. And this thing here, this New World Order, and all this satanic deep state exemplified by the Clintons, we can fight this thing this powerfully is to just stand together.
One of the missions of, you know, this channel is to up, and there's been a lot of times I would get just really angry at people and just chew their ass out up and down, tell them if, you know, anything, just get the fuck off this channel, because that want to stand beside me, not behind me, is just ramming my head into the wall. And let's break the son of a bitch down.
I understand all that, but you got to understand a lot of people have children, they have young, they have a job, they have a house, they have these things, and they have a good job, and they're afraid, and you can't blame them. different ways to fight this thing. There's different things you can do, each in your own way. But the key is you gotta try to stay alive to fight another day. And that's what I kept telling myself when they had me in Supermax solitary, 3 cells from McVeigh. I was in there all alone, and hey, I'm going to stay alive to fight another day. I've got to keep my mouth shut now. I've got to play their game. I'll plead guilty to some stupid thing. I don't care what they give me. I'll just plead guilty so I can get out of here. And then I'm going to take these tapes and all this stuff, and I'm going to wait for the right time. And it's been about 22 years since I was offered that job to bomb the Murrah building, and I waited that long. So patience is a virtue. You can't do rash actions and stuff. We have to be logical and reasonable and stand up together.
Oh, well, the main reason I was doing that was just really to slap everybody with a healthy dose of reality, just to wake them up, because so many people are in a trance. With this TV, I call it tell lie vision, because everybody's being programmed by their programming. With the GMO engineering that's going on, the fluoride in the water, the geoengineering in the skies. I mean, we've all been chemically duped to a certain point and brainwashed, because everything that we thought was true has been a lie. That's what's been really frustrating, is once you start waking up and seeing what the truth is, unring that bell.
Okay, Scott, I've got, we're going to have to end this thing pretty soon, but you're going to love this. We might have to do another thing real soon. If you want to know the hidden stuff, the hidden agenda, and what they're doing with the nano aluminum and the particulates, I've got another story, kind of similar to this one. It's not a conspiracy. Well, it is, I guess, but I can go through some science and explain most people have never heard about as to the reasons, one of the reasons why they're really chemtrailing. Okay. It's not been out yet.
Well, I look forward to it. In fact, that was going to be one of my final closing is if this video, would you come back for another interview?
Yeah, I will, and I'll give you a teaser for that, okay, for chemtrails. When they spray those things, like in Desert Storm 1 over there, they had aircraft that sprayed nano-aluminum particulates. They had very small particles, small, weak electric magnetic fields, okay? And they saturated the airspace over Baghdad. And radar, and the things that lock on the Hellfire missiles and so forth, it gave them a better lock. In other words, it made our electronics see better in the atmosphere if it was mildly charged. And so over here, and there's a synergistic quality when you combine the nano-aluminum that you breathe in the air and you combine the glyphosate from Monsanto's Roundup Ready that's in the crops and the fluoride that's in the water. When you combine all three of those things, you would think they have a toxicity of 1, which makes a toxicity of 3. But in synergy, you add 1, it makes a toxicity of 125. So when you combine the chemtrail sprays with the GMO glyphosate in the food and then the fluoride in the water, it all acts to encase the pineal gland and dumb us down and keep our consciousness down. The Nazis first started all this back in the death camps. They wanted the prisoners to be able to work, okay? But, not be too smart and dumbed down and lethargic so they could execute them whenever they got around to it. And they started fluoridating the water real heavily in those camps like Dachau and Auschwitz. And so some of that technology was brought over in Operation Paperclip here to the States, and they've applied it into these higher level things. The chemtrailing deal actually is multi-layered, has a lot of agendas, but one of them is also the dumbing down on a mass scale, because you have to breathe air, to drink water, and you have to eat food.
Yep.
And so I have all the science on this. I have all the X-ray. I have a whole bunch of scientific stuff that's been done with just gas chromatography, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll cut all that, and that can be another thing sometime. But this New World Order thing actually extends way past false flag operations. You know, they're spraying. It all ties together. It's a big picture.
Totally agree. And 144 watching at one time. Hey, y'all, you need to and get this message out, put it on all your social media platforms so this will get out to help protect Cody. 16 likes so far. You need to smash that like button and drive it up. It's not just for you. When this video, when you start passing it around, it starts going into everybody's watch list. The ratings, the more it goes to your neighbor. It all, but your neighbor just might. You to help make sure your neighbor has the opportunity to even listen to this, because this on
for sure. But I think we probably overloaded a lot of people. I mean, it's just so much information in such a short time, and I hope I've tried to do a pretty good job. But
no, it's been,
I'll keep doing what I can as I can. So
yeah, no, this has been a really good show. We've gone on for almost 2 hours now, so I can understand if you want to take a break. And basically I'll sign off on this, and then I'll talk to you on the phone for a couple minutes, and we'll see about setting up another interview time whenever it's good for you. And I also have another little story I want to tell you about off air, about a guy that is wanting to do an interview on Friday evening. And
okay.
It kind of goes and ties right into everything. And this guy's over in the UK, and he contacted me just like you did after seeing that video. And so if anybody has any type of stories that are like Cody's, that you have some really deep information that is about exposing government corruption to the scale like Cody, but you can't get this out, you can send me an email, radio@gmail. Story, I'll see about putting you on too, so you can get your story out. We need more people like Cody to get out and get these stories out there too, because right now is the time, y'all. Now, time after this. So,
right.
What? Let me ask you the last question. You want to tell your fellow Americans and the people of the world listening to it, because we have people in France and the UK listening now.
We're all human beings. We all breathe air like John Kennedy, our president, that was murdered by the shadow government. We all breathe air. We're all human beings. We all love our children. You know, we all want good things in our lives. It is time for us, regardless of what nation we're in, thanks to Vladimir Putin. You know, I'm trying to stand together against this new world order. The bankers are so corrupt. They're ruining. It's time for us to stand in our spiritual light. Okay, integrity. That's right. Do what's good. We all know what that is in our hearts. I may be killed for what I'm doing. Okay, but I'm willing to step forward and call others to action. Winston Churchill in World War II, when the Luftwaffe was bombing the hell out of the Englanders in London, he got on the speech and morale was low. And the Nazis were real close to overrunning Britain. And they were staying in the subways and everything. And he made a speech and he said, something I'm going to paraphrase, he said, you know, sometimes it is better to fight with absolutely no chance of winning than to live the rest of your days as a slave.
I totally agree.
So that's what I would say is wherever you are, whoever you're listening, we're up against a big battle, and it's not going to be easy, but the light will prevail in the end. And that's about it. So I'll hang on until we can talk at the end here, and then we'll see what all goes on. But all you guys out there, and Scott, thank you for this. I've got a lot of interviews and a quest coming in for this book. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening, but I've got some help. I've got a lot of people that are working with me behind the scenes. And so let's all stand together.
You to know there's a lot of people that have been sending prayers your way in the chat box. And for you, my man, in there, I'm going to put all your information in the description box so people can send you emails, all that good stuff. And
I'll tell you what, let me say one more thing. And this is a quote from the Bible. It says, "It is hidden and will be found out. It will be known." You in the dark, light people. They can kill you, but they cannot soul. So, and that's what this is about. This is about dark freedom and goodness and clean air and clean water and stuff, or do we want a satanic world ruled by people like Bill and Hillary Clinton and the bankers and destruction and this new world order nightmare? What do you want? We have to stand up now. If we don't stand up now, we may never have another chance to.
Well, I agree. That's why I wanted you on the show. That's why I even pushed you to get on here tonight so you could get this out ASAP and let everybody start hearing what you have to say, because I felt it was important, and I really believe people need to know the truth. It's time for the truth to come out. It's time for people to grow up, quit playing stupid little games. It's time to wake up. This is real. This is happening. It is going on around you. And this man can put it together, tie all the pieces together. There's no way you can sit here and say, oh, I don't believe any of that bullshit. You all know deep down in your hearts, that's the sad reality you're going to have to face. So let me go ahead and sign off with these people real quick, Cody. I'll be right back with you.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
Okay. All right, people. Now you know what to do. Smash the like button and pass this around to all the social media to get this out as fast as you possibly can. You have to do. Nobody's asking you to do anything else. It is up to you to make. With all that said, the show, I hope good evening. And just remember, God bless.